Something I've always found interesting is console redesigns. Some systems never received a refresh like the Nintendo 64 for example, while others, like the Sega Genesis, had 3 different variants. There's a few different reasons why companies redesign their systems, and it's usually related to reducing production costs and sale price, as well as refreshing the look of a system that's already been out for several years. Sometimes systems get additional features and a boost in power, and sometimes it can even be the opposite, like the Wii Mini where a lot of the functionality was removed. I think it's overall an interesting topic, and today we'll take a look at what I think the nicest looking console redesigns are. And just to be clear, for this video I define a redesigned console as a system that changed its looks. For example, the GameCube's with and without the digital AV output wouldn't count. That's more like a revision. Let's start with my first ever console, the Nintendo Game Boy Pocket. I got mine back in 1998, and even today I still think it's a great looking system. The original Game Boy isn't really something I'd consider stylish, but I do like the look of the Play It Loud series. The Game Boy Pocket is noticeably lighter, has a bigger screen, and uses 2 AAA batteries rather than 4 AA's. The screen on the Pocket is truly grayscale and has more contrast and less ghosting than the originals, which I think makes a big difference in terms of playability. That being said, I do think the original Game Boy did have its advantages. I think it feels better to hold because it's a bit thicker, and the buttons are more solid with less play in them. The Game Boy Pocket's D-pad has been wobbly from day one, and the sound quality is much better on the original as well. The Pocket has this hissing noise in the background whenever a sound plays, and it can get really annoying, at least for me. The Game Boy Pocket's final form has to be the Game Boy Lite, which was a Japanese-only release. It looks like a Game Boy Pocket, but it's actually slightly bigger and uses 2 AA batteries. I've never tried one, but I think these are really cool. The PlayStation 3 is, from both a hardware and marketing perspective, quite interesting. Not only does it have 3 major redesigns and even more revisions, but it's also had its branding completely changed when it was first redesigned. In my opinion, this was a good thing. The PS3 Slim was released in 2009, and I think in terms of looks, this has to be the best PS3. The original I thought was a bit cluttered, and the Super Slim, despite being ribbed for pleasure, didn't do it for me in the looks department. I think there are too many non-harmonizing visual elements. The Slim is nice and sleek with a comparatively simple design, but it's also practical in the sense that it has a matte finish that doesn't attract fingerprints. Not to mention, it's also noticeably smaller. Some people think that the Slim lost a bunch of features, but that's actually not true at all. PS2 backwards compatibility, the media card reader, as well as some of the USB ports disappeared with the 3rd generation Fat model. The Slim was mainly about looks, efficiency, and price. But the nice thing is that it still feels solid. You can't really notice any cost cutting in terms of build quality. Now here's a system that some people don't even know exists. It's the Nintendo Wii Mini. A bit of an odd name considering that this isn't really any smaller than the original Wii. Perhaps Mini refers to its lackluster feature list. No online play, no SD card slot, so you can't mod it, and no component out video, so you'll have to deal with composite and interlacing. It did make sense as a low-cost system. It's only a little bit more expensive than buying a nunchuck and Wiimote brand new, and then later bundles even had Mario Kart Wii, the actual game packaged with it, so that's pretty cool. For example, parents who didn't or couldn't spend more money on a system picked these up for their kids, and while a second-hand Wii could have cost about the same or would have cost about the same, it's always nice to be able to get a brand new system with a warranty. Features aside, I think this is a really good-looking system. It doesn't feel as high quality as the original or Family Edition Wii in some places, but it has a simple, no-nonsense look. The color scheme looks great as well. I already mentioned before how I think red, white, and black is one of the most powerful and attention-grabbing color combos that don't look over the top. Coca-Cola, the White Stripes, YouTube, as well as Nintendo have been using this color combo for years. There's also the texture of the plastic, which I think looks very pleasing to the eye. It's a good way to add detail to a relatively simple shape. Here's another Nintendo console, the DS Lite. This is one of my favorite handheld systems ever in terms of looks. I can say the same thing about the DSi and DSi XL, but those felt more like logical progressions, while the DS Lite is quite different to the original DS. I really don't like the look of the original DS at all. I'm sure there are people who like it, but the strange shape and ugly hinge I just don't like it. The DS Lite, on the other hand, manages to tidy up the look very well. It's nice and compact, yet feels great in the hand. I don't think there's anything I find ugly about this system at all. It looks great from any angle, except for one thing, and that's that the GBA cartridges are not flush, so they poke out. Oh yeah, and those pretty hinges don't seem to be very sturdy either. I've never had a problem with the hinges myself, but I do own a Lite that has a cracked hinge. But that wasn't from me. The previous owner really hammered on this thing. I don't know what the hell they were doing with it. Maybe I'll convert it into a GBA like I've seen some people do. The Sony PS1 Slim is another one of my favorite systems in terms of looks. The original PlayStation I actually find quite nice to look at already, but I can really appreciate the reduction in size and the rounded appearance. It looks a bit like something that could be released today, like a PS1 Mini console filled with 24 fan-favorite PlayStation games. I'm not an expert with PS1s, but I think some of the earliest fat models are the best ones to own. But in terms of looks, I think the redesign looks fantastic. I'm going to get myself a PlayStation one of these days. And the last redesign we'll look at today is the Gameboy Micro. This is one of the nicest looking handhelds I can think of, but it's not terribly practical. This is a GBA that features no backwards compatibility, which is interesting because the name suggests the opposite. The design is really sleek, and the interchangeable faceplates are a really interesting feature I like. Honestly, in terms of functionality, something like a GBA SP would make much more sense. It's also pretty small, and the lack of Game Boy and Game Boy Color support isn't ideal. Still, these things just have something about them I really like. Anyway, that's going to be it for today's video. There's some other redesigns that I could have talked about as well, but for the sake of not making the video too long, I think it's best to stop here for now. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Let me know what your favorite console redesigns are in the comments. I'm always interested to hear what your opinions are. And also check me out on these other platforms here that you see on the screen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video.